So I left the first day, and I was on the mountain in Switzerland, and then I had the idea to go back to the archive and look at the files of the CEO of Sandoz, because Albert Hoffmann, the chemist, he just discovered it by chance, but the company, turns it into a medicine, or maybe that, in this case didn't. So I was looking at the papers of Stoll, which is the CEO, and this was actually not easy because the archivist didn't want to welcome me back to the archives. Like, he sensed that I was like onto something, so he said, "Don't come. I don't have time for you today." Because I went, again the next day, and I still went. I just went, and he was a bit taken aback by me just coming. But he's a hospital Swiss guy. Like, come inside. But I can't help you today. And then I got into a conversation with him about LSD. And I had some LSD with me because I had just met a good friend in Zurich, and he had given me some LSD for my mother, against my mother's Alzheimer. She uses LSD microdosed. So I had some LSD with me, actually. And I said that to the archivist, "Have you ever seen LSD?" And he's like, "No, it's illegal. How can I see it?" Well, but it was a product of your company a long time ago, and I have some. I want to offer you some, so at least you have some. You can put it here in the archive if you want. So he kind of laughed at that. And I gave him an LSD trip, and obviously he didn't take it, but he just, saw it for the first time ever,
Yeah.
And he became friendly, and then he said, "So what, is there something you actually want to see today?" And then I said, "Well, I want to see the papers of the CEO." He said, "Oh, that's no problem." And he just went next door, and he got me those letters, and in those letters, I found the smoking gun, as they say in America, right?
Yeah, those are the letters between Arthur Stoll and Richard Kuhn, the Nazi scientist.
Yeah, right.
Is that those are the letters you're referring to?
Yeah. These were the letters I found. Like, this was the connection because you have to research a little bit more. Who is this Arthur Stoll? And this Arthur Stoll, the Swiss guy, his teacher was Richard Wildstetter, who was a Jewish German maverick and inventor of biochemistry, or one of the people that invented biochemistry, Nobel Prize winner. And he taught two people. He taught few people, but his two prodigy sons were Richard Stoll, the Swiss guy, who then left him to become the CEO of Sandoz, and the other one was Richard Kuhn, who also left Wildstetter at a certain point in time to become Hitler's leading biochemist. So that's why Stoll and Kuhn were quite good friends. They were like on the same page, always had exchanged information and knowledge, always in the 20s and the 30s. And, Stoll was not an anti-Nazi. So when the Nazis took over Germany, this was, in Switzerland, this is a neighboring country. They still had friendly relations, especially with their friends,
Oh, yeah.
And they continued sharing information. Also, Kuhn shared information with Stoll, so it went both ways. So Stoll informed Kuhn about LSD, and Kuhn became very interested in it because he was responsible also or working to develop a truth drug for the Nazis. And this LSD was very strong, so Kuhn thought maybe if you give it to people without telling them, maybe you can, control people or influence people. So the Nazis did this test series in the concentration camp of Dachau because of that connection between Stoll and Kuhn. So Stoll kind of spilled the beans into the wrong courtyard because suddenly the Nazis were interested in psychedelics and in LSD for their evil means, that how can we control people? And so this, of course, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, so the Dachau experiments with psychedelics came directly because of Stoll's correspondences with Kuhn, the Nazi scientist.
I would say they came indirectly because it's not like Stoll said to Kuhn, "You should set up a test series in Dachau with our LSD." They were talking about LSD, and also Kuhn was not the scientist who did these experiments. This was done by an SS officer, Plötner. Kuhn was more like the scientist in the background, that he was in the highest, committee of, scientists that working for Hitler. They were thinking, he, for example, developed sarin, which is the most poisonous nerve gas. Kuhn did. So he was actually actively developing weapons, but he would not go into a concentration camp. He was not an SS guy. Like the SS ran the concentration camps. He was, I don't even know if he was in the Nazi party. He was just, working as a scientist during those times. And, he had no problem with collaborating with the government, which was in that case the Nazi dictatorship. And he said things like Heil Hitler when he was starting a lecture at university, sometimes, but not always. So he was not, he was a Nazi, but he was not a Nazi like the SS guy in the concentration camp who actually executed these tests. And I have also no paper trail between them, so I don't know exactly how the communication was. But the SS guy, he didn't invent this by himself. This was a bigger program, and Kuhn was one of the brains for the program of biochemical warfare.
Yeah, and you share a letter in the book where Kuhn, the Nazi scientist, thanks Stoll, the CEO of Sandoz, for his shipment of ergotamine, which can be used to synthesize LSD. Why do you think Stoll shipped Kuhn ergotamine and didn't just send him straight up LSD?
I don't know. I really don't know. There's no real reason for it. It's also possible that Kuhn made other molecules from ergotamine. So maybe what was used in Dachau wasn't LSD. Today, for example, in Berlin, you can buy legal LSD, which is the LSD molecule altered just a little bit. So it has LSD effects, but it's not illegal because it's not LSD. It's like a different molecule. So maybe Kuhn did make LSD. Maybe he was using ergotamine to make something else. There's no, I couldn't find more documents on this. I don't think they exist. I also went to the Kuhn archives in Berlin. This was very secret research that was being done.
Yeah, because when you mentioned the Dachau experiments, I'm thinking, did Stoll did Kuhn ask for the ergotamine possibly instead of LSD? Because like you said, he's looking to make various different compounds and not just one, because if you're experimenting on different people, different subjects, you're going to want more flexibility.
Yeah, it's quite possible. Maybe he also, I don't know. There's no record for it, but it would be very interesting to be in Kuhn's lab in October 1943 when he receives 0.5 gram of ergotamine, which is quite a lot. What did he do with it, and who did he show it to, and did he take it himself? Was he on LSD maybe? I mean, it's a movie can start there, but not a nonfiction book.
Yeah. Well, was Stoll aware of the Nazis' obsession with mind control and looking for the truth serum when he sent Kuhn the ergotamine, or was that something that the Nazis were keeping under wraps? So they were obsessed with the other and trying to use a mind control drug to figure out who was against them.
There's no paper, no document that proves that Stoll knew about this. So it's speculation whether he did know. I think he didn't. I don't think Kuhn said, "Look, we're looking for a truth drug here. What you're telling me." But maybe they telephoned. I really don't know how far. Like Stoll is a very interesting character, and I paint him kind of as an antagonist, kind of a bad guy. But I'm not even sure that's true. He was a CEO of a big company. He collected art. I mean, he did some unethical things like buy, paintings from Jewish owners from Germany who had to sell cheap. But I guess many people did that. It doesn't automatically turn you into a Nazi. I mean, he was a Swiss guy. He was a businessman. He became very rich. He was very successful. He was very good as a chemist. He was under a lot of pressure because he, was leading a pharmaceutical, big company. I think he was a very interesting character, actually. And, but he did not, manage, and I blame him for that, actually, I do. He did not manage he did not decide to go through with LSD, to really
Mm-hmm.
put it on the market, find the indications, make the clinical trials. He didn't do that because he was under pressure from the CIA. And I don't know how heavy that pressure was, because the CIA, first the American military became interested in the SS experiments on the truth drug, and then the CIA became interested on those experiments. So that's how the American government became interested in LSD, because the Nazis were interested in it. So Stoll never said, I don't care what you CIA tell me, because the CIA was actually visiting him in his office in Basel, Switzerland, putting pressure on him. Don't put this out. We have the FDA. We're working with the FDA.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be happy in America if you insist on LSD. LSD is our thing. We're gonna examine it. And they probably didn't tell him what they want to do with it, but they said we have to keep this under wraps, basically.
Yeah. And so when the Americans went into post-World War II Germany and they were interacting with Nazi scientists or former Nazi scientists, that's when the connection was made about LSD and the mind control drug. Is that when the Americans, caught the psychedelic fever?
Well, the American forces had a special unit called ALSOS, ALSOS, with them. Like, ALSOS contained of several units, and they were responsible for finding German scientists to interrogate them about nuclear research and also biochemical weapons research. So Richard Kuhn became one of their first interview partners. This was in Heidelberg in the spring of 1945. And after Kuhn talked about what he knew, because Kuhn was very cooperative, because for Nazi scientists at the time, either you received an invitation to continue your career in the United States under Operation Paperclip, or if you were a high-end scientist, you ended up in Nuremberg because you committed war crimes. And Richard Kuhn could have ended up on the bench in Nuremberg because he developed a nerve gas, and this influential scientist in Nazi Germany. So he was quite open to share his knowledge with Americans. He had no problems with Americans. And he later on came to America and advised companies in America, and was at universities in America. And then he basically made peace with the new force. So the Americans learned about LSD during those debriefings, and you can see immediately a high-ranking general flies in from the States and travels after he meets Kuhn to Switzerland, to Basel, to the headquarters of Sandoz, receives LSD there from Stoll, actually Stoll's son in this case. Stoll doesn't meet with the American, but Stoll's son meets and gives the American general LSD, and then the American military examines LSD. They do this by employing a professor from Harvard University called Henry K. Beecher, who was a leading drug expert for the American military. So his advice was, he then received the SS reports from Dachau, so they were sent to him. They landed on his desk in Harvard, and he had to evaluate it. And he wrote back that yes, LSD and the other ego-depressant drugs, as they were called, because they depress the ego and other parts of the brain become more, active. These actually could be used as potential weapons, and he suggested that there should be a program to examine this. And this then landed on the desk of Sidney Gottlieb, who was a CIA executive who headed the MK-Ultra program. So it became his job then to examine, to finish the Nazis, test series, because the Nazis were interrupted because they lost the war. They couldn't finish, they didn't come to any conclusions except that you can seriously destabilize a person if you give him mescaline or LSD without telling the person. So Sidney Gottlieb kind of went into the details. He really refined that research over years.